Alex. No, that doesn't sound so good. Take two. Hello, Alex. Now, yesterday, this morning actually, some things happened which kind of gave me some light, alerted me of the fact that you might not understand some things that are happening on Reddit. So I thought that I'd sit down and make this little clip to, in a way, clarify them for you so you would understand better. So yesterday, now I have this paper here which basically contains what exactly happened. Now, Alex posted this post on Reddit, and it was about having a mod academy. He said, I guess, to read and teach mods how to be better mods, because he's been around Reddit for a while and he knows that side of it. Now, under that, I asked him a long question, and that might have been my mistake, about getting the ability to vote out mods. And some other users joined in. He didn't at first, and it turned into basically cat's claw. No, I came all the way in here, locked the door, because this is where I feel more comfortable talking, because there are several issues here that have to do with looks, body types, gender identification, and also a touch of, in a way, hacking. Hey, so without anything further, I have this paper which contains the 4 points that I'm going to talk on so that I do not go off topic and ramble. So the first thing is on this genderization. Now the best way that I can put this is that, let's say that for some reason my main account was, or is, not even sure what to call it, Cherryroses, and let's say right now I was to make up another account called Coconut Head 777 or something, and I was to pretend that that account was, I don't know, a person from Shanghai, China, let's say, or something. The way I express myself as Cherryroses and the way I'd express myself as Coconut 777 is going to be different. And there are reasons for that. Your personality has to vary. Because what I noticed yesterday is I picked up a pattern when I looked at what Alex shadow banned. Now before I go any further, let me just explain to you guys what shadow banning is. When you have a Reddit account, let's say your name was George789, and on that account for the last 2 years you've been writing poems and showing them your little art pieces, that kind of thing. And when you click on that account, an outside user will be able to see all those pills and go, cool, nice. But if you do something that a mod does not accept or does not like, what they can do is shadow ban you. Now that is where they have a little more access to Reddit's tweakers, controllers than you do. And they can, instead of making, they can make it so, instead of going and seeing all the pictures on the George777 name, you will just get a picture and then it says page not found. Now another thing is that when that happens, not only can somebody outside not see your work, but somebody, in fact you yourself, who wants to get in to access your account, you can't. And I learned that because MoseyFan, believe it or not, was not me. Now this is one that was not me, and I'll admit to Fern Gully Freak, I'll admit to Skinny Asian Guy too, but MoseyFan was not me. And what happened was, after the race fight, although I really shouldn't get into this, after the race fight with Yishan, they shadow banned him after he asked for help via him again and again. And that was in the early days when they didn't know so much about shadow banning, and he tried to get on his account and they just kept telling him password invalid. He couldn't get in. He thought he was actually writing the account wrong because he had done this before a lot to get into the account. He had a laptop. This is in 2010, 2011. He had a BlackBerry, in fact. I remember one time Linda 73 message came in with the 73, and everybody's crowding over him watching. It's not me. Honestly, I don't have the money for those kind of things. Anyway, so when that happened, and so he went to Windows Word and he typed out his password and checked it and made sure that it was right and copy pasted it and put it in and then clicked enter, and when it still told him password invalid, that's when he knew something was more wrong. So that is shadow banning, also known as picturing. So what happened yesterday, as I said, was I asked Alex a question under his post about being able to vote out mods after something happened to me where this mod wouldn't listen. And some other users jumped in. They don't know everything, but hey, anyway. And after a while, when I looked at my account, I saw that dreaded, it's sort of like a blue screen, page not found. At first I was kind of like taken aback, but yeah, I knew it was wrong. But what I noticed, I picked up a pattern. Alex didn't ban everybody in the house like Yishan. No, if I was marching them, in terms of, I would give Alex a pass, but Yishan, I'm sorry, fail. But anyway, he did not ban everybody, and I began to notice a pattern in terms of the alts that he let pass and the alts that he banned. The ones that he predominantly left alone were the ones, the China-based accounts, the ones where I'm pretending to be taller than I actually am, sexier looking than I actually am. More in control of things. Less afraid. That's actually a very important point in this discussion, but I'll get into that later. Now, as I was saying, get into the heart of this. If I was to make a fake account right now, let's say my main account is Cherryroses, and if I was to make a fake account right now and call that account, let's say, Coconut Head 777. Have I said that yet? Anyway, call it 777. The way I express myself on those two accounts would be different? Yeah. Because they're supposed to have different personalities, and the way that you express yourself so you don't get caught, it's supposed to be different. So for instance, on Cherryroses, if a question came up about police orders and stuff, what would you do if the police was wrong, let's say? I might say something like, I'd just be silent and go along with it. But if I was writing under the Coconut Head 777 account, the first thing is figure types. They're not as afraid of everything as I am. And this also has to do with, I'll take this later, it's a little bit like the Chinese thought system of Qi. Things that have happened in your past affect how enthusiastically and relatively you will react to a certain situation. So under the 777 account, I might say something like, I don't know, take him to court, because that is what you kind of expect from a bigger type to say. Yeah, and also, I can't be like that all the time. It's a generalization, it's when it comes in. Because me, naturally, I'm softer than that. It might have to do it fair, I don't know, but... And also, when I'm writing as 777, so if I was even doing that right now, it's kind of like I have to look at it from Jasmine's point of view, my point of view, and then look at it from what he did in the experience, because that is how I kind of do it, and reverse it so that the story is coming from my point of view and it sounds realistic. So that's that. Genderization, I just can't do it all the time. It's a little bit like how you see things, what you're capable of. Psyche. Break this down as far as it can go. me as Cherry Roses because I am more of a true reflection of myself. Gotta be softer. Javin, alright. The next point is, and this is where it's going to start to get solid here, body types. Now, in thinking about this, I said I was going to start out like body types. There are 4 different body types in this world. You have the fakir body types, as I said. Now, members of this include people like Britney Spears, Jennifer Lopez, Chris Patton, of course, and maybe Matt Damon, that kind of thing. You also have the Aladdin body type. That's people like Brad Pitt, Princeton, Katy Perry, that kind of thing. Now you have the Jasmine body type, and that's people like, I'm part of that, Rihanna, Beyonce, if you want to go darker rain, because body types are not only about skin color, it's kind of more about face and body structure. It's like, it's a slide. You can get darker, you can get lighter. It's not limiting in that way, but what you actually look like, that's solid too. And the last one is the Li Shang type, but we're not going to talk about that today, so that's kind of not as important. Now, with fakir body types, the first point that I said I was going to say on this is Alex. He's a fakir body type. Now, when I'm pretending to be a fakir type, part of the reason why he probably left that alone is because he can understand it. It's like parallel to what he's doing, because when I'm on the fakir types, if you look at, for example, Fern Gully Freak, Skinny Asian Guy too, what do I tend to post when I'm on those things? Cooking. Chores. Every now and again, makeup, that kind of thing. Like, things he understands. It's closer to him. He can probably see himself in there as it, so he understands, and so he left it alone. My accounts tend to be more controversial, partially because of fear. Get into that later. But, yeah. So it's closer to him, so I left it alone. By and large, if you look at it, the ones that were left alone is the ones where I'm pretending, or sometimes I give the passwords to other people in the house, but if I'm in control of it, say Cook on the Head 777 was around since back then, he would have left that alone, because that's the kind of way it is. You also tend to get more positive karma, but another issue why they're like that is because when you're beautiful and you know it, it affects how you roll in real life. I thought of this morning, a little while after I got banned, and it came to this. Like, if I and, say, Kareena Kapoor's mother, and there was a task to do where you had to go up to somebody and ask them for something, I would do that in a different way from Mrs. Kareena, because it's like I know that I don't have that extreme face beauty that she has. And so she might, for instance, just go straight up to the guy that she has to ask for the paper and say, hey, need this, blah, 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 but maybe, exactly. And she'd get it, go on, no big issue. Me, on the other hand, if I had to do that, as I'm walking up to that guy, I'm thinking, what can I do to soften this? Because sometimes how you act to people influences their reaction to you. Oh, whoa, got a big Tumblr add-in to add about that, but anyway. So I might be walking up, and I tell him why I needed it, etc., etc., etc. Talk to him respectfully, just to try and get that paper without many hitch-ups. Because I know I don't get that extreme beauty. Beauty in that case is like an assurity, if you understand what I'm saying. Because when you have an extremely pretty face like Tacky, it's like that back card in your pocket where the person might like you, but I didn't come out that good. Sila. So I have to make up for it by having a good personality in real life. Now, to move on to it, body types. Another thing with this body types is, as I said, the chi. This is how the chi works. For instance, if you, as I mentioned, Britney Spears and Rihanna, because you know what you're looking for. They kind of reflect the general principles of the body types too. It actually wasn't my mother who taught me this. My father is better at placing quickly what type you are than her. If you had a competition between, give you an example, Britney Spears, Rihanna,
and they are supposed to, I don't know, say they want some kind of celeb survivor, and they're supposed to lay out tomatoes on a table, and you're not telling them what's the winning category, but you're just watching them, and whoever fits it unknowingly wins. Who do you expect to spend more time making sure that they get all the tomatoes perfect so nothing happens? And who do you expect to just put them fast? Rihanna's the perfection one. Britney's the one who's going to do it fast. You can also observe some of that in the lineups that they do on the red carpets. Britney Spears. In fact, this one, they might have been there together. She's talking to everybody, Britney, along the line of the fans who are behind the fence. Rihanna, she's like, every couple ones, sign this one, da-da-da, sign that one. And that's a reflection of that fear. It's an internalization. It affects you. Even though you might be saying, oh, she's beautiful, this, that, the other. When you're growing up, and when you're small with this, it sticks in your head. Yeah. The other final point that I was supposed to make on body types is that as Cherry Roses, I'm 5'5" on my tall foots. This one, 5'4" when I'm standing flat. It's like you're not as awesome, and that's in the head as you're interacting with people. So that affects how you type. Also, alright, moving on to comparativeness. This one is the key one where most of the definition points is going to be like, when I am writing as Cherry Roses, say there was something on Reddit which had said that a group of people wanted to loot a Korean restaurant, let's say, because they didn't agree with the point of views that the Korean managers have. As Cherry Roses, I might say something like, that's against the law, it's not cool, blah 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 blah, and that actually on Reddit might get downvoted, because when they think that their justified reasons are good enough, they sometimes don't listen to straight sense. However, if I got an argument, and let's say I brought out that Coconut 777 account to help me out, because on Coconut 77 I'm actually pretending to be older than I am also, as well, what happens is that I will, instead of just saying it's against the law, even if I will say it's against nature to do that, and I will also like give examples of times in the past where that has happened, 80s, 70s, that kind of thing, and say this happened and such happened when they tried that before, and this was the result. It's not a good result. If you think that was a fluke, this happened again, and such was the result. It's not a good way to go. And even though at the root of it, we're saying the same thing, that looting a supermarket is not a good thing to do, because of the way Coconut 77 presents it, because of how I have to think when I'm on that account, the karma levels are going to be different, the acceptance levels are going to be different, they might more listen to her than me, which usually happens. And the way I do that, if you sit down, you can put yourself in the shoes of anybody if you try hard enough. You just have to think about things they've told you, and place yourself like there in the situation, and being like, how would I be feeling if that happened, etc., etc. And even if I have to open like www.history.com in this tab and Reddit in the other, just to make sure that I get the facts right and sound genuine, I will. Because they don't want to listen to you. It's like this mystical element to it. Like, because she's a couple years older than you, or the average Redditor, you think she's going to know so much more, and she's so much wiser, and etc., etc., and so her opinion is respected. In fact, I have a feeling that might have partially also happened with Alex, to why he might have left some of the higher ones alone. But really and truly, age, while you are supposed to respect your elders, you can put yourself in their situation if you sit down and really think on it long and hard enough, and relate it to what they told you, and try to put yourself in their shoes, looking up from their eyes, how that would have seemed back then, including all the elements of the different ways that people operated in the times. That kind of thing. This is giving you like a window on what it's like to be Cherry Roses. Yeah. Another thing is the sexy side of it. Now, on Cherry Roses, I'd be a little more low-lying, but when you really like got to a point, if somebody else was talking to me, then I'd come out and tell you a few things, but usually it's from the feminine side of the view. On an account like Fern Gully Freak, that gets totally reversed because nobody knows it's me. Nobody's gonna come back to me later and tell me, blah blah blah, you know those things you're not supposed to. And like, one of my dad's things to do is he will, if you get out of line too much, find something in the Bible to give you, to show you, to read, to counteract that. It's not always nice. Sometimes you don't want to be sitting there for 40 minutes reading Bible verses and having him lecture you into me. But yeah, so I can express myself more freely, and you will get more points in subreddits like the subreddit for sex and the subreddit for dildos and that kind of thing. I can't believe I just said that straight out. Anyway, so that's how that is. Also, another thing is you have to have a more caring point of view when you're pretending to be a mother of girls. Sometimes I will, if it's more appropriate, I'll go and say that this happened, that, can you help me? And sometimes it's not entirely fake because it sounds real. There's a reason why it sounds real. It happened. It just didn't happen to me. It happened to her, and I just kind of personify that from her point of view. You're seeing how I do this now. And they'll come in, they'll help. Sometimes I'll tell her what they said. And for instance, like that Sriracha cartoon. Yeah, she knows the password, but you get the point. The 8, you have to make it sound older. Now, Cherryroses' point of view on this, I don't know. Sometimes I sing, because at least if I try hard enough, if I take enough takes, sometimes I can find myself like, hey, that kind of sounded like the studio version. And that you can get, come on, upvotes. People will like you for that. I don't even really like saying this so much, but there are some people who are pretty that I look at that you upvote, etc., etc. But you have to be guarded in terms of what you do.
In the end, it's coming back to little, incapable you.
Also, on comparativeness, there is the issue of, even on like an Aladdin account. This cartoon, it may sound childish, but when I first saw that, when it came out when I was 8, Aladdin gave me a sense of identity of who I was. It sounds really childish, and I will not go and just walk up to everybody and tell them that, but when you see how, for instance, in the episodes, Jasmine reacts to certain things that are happening, and what would have happened if you took this path versus this one. And like, I look at that, and from that, it gives you more of an incentive to think out things before you do them. That's kind of where I learned how to do that so well from. Partially. It also gives you a sense of identity, like, who am I? I mean, sometimes I think, was this real? Like, was it based on anything? Was there any ancient tale or anything that Aladdin was loosely based on? To me, out of all the things that I've heard, he sounds the most like Stephen of the Crusades. Down to that little carpet, not very far, especially considering the technology that they used that was so ahead of their time. Yes, moving on. Comparativeness. I'm supposed to give something else on this. And even every now and again, when you're talking to yourself on Reddit, sometimes you may say something like, you're pretty, or you look hot, or something, and sometimes you can just sit, and especially if you sizzle it up a notch, you can sit and fantasize with that for a few minutes, and who doesn't want to do that? Because when you know you're ugly, huh? I have 2 more points to make on this comparativeness. The way we operate, the way we write, because I have so much practice. If I was to get on your account and you were a fakir type, you would not be even able to tell the difference. Which you have to do unto others as they would have them do unto you. On Facebook once, and that was such a true thing. Don't trust anybody with your password, because people bad-minded and you never know who will do what. Amen. Selah. Everything. Like, wow, that is such a good statement. Sometimes I wonder what's to come up with these things. But anyway. The last point on comparativeness is, in the real world, how I would act towards someone versus a fakir type. Let's say that we were in a supermarket and we were both looking for chocolate milk. How I would deal with that might be something like, okay, I'm looking for the chocolate milk. I'm not seeing it. If I see a member of the store who is standing there. I don't know, maybe he's cleaning vegetables or something, and I'm not seeing the chocolate milk. As I'm going up to him, like I say, I'm thinking, how can I soften this? How can I be a nice person so that in return he will be nice to me? So I might go up to him and say something like, hi, I'm having to do a recipe and it requires chocolate milk. I'm not seeing that in this Walmart store. Can you please show me where it is, sir? I'd really appreciate that. And because I was so nice to him at first, it's going to change how he reacts to me, because I know I don't have the look, so I have to make up for it with personality. Yeah. How a fakir type might handle that is just say, hey, wink or something, and say, do you know where the chocolate milk is? And because she's that pretty, he'll help straight off. Somebody on Tumblr, believe it or not, Tumblr is a site where they post pictures. They said, Larry's so sweet. Now, the comment might have been more like, Larry's sweet in personality or something like that, Javin. Now there is, if my experience as somebody who looks a little bit like Larry, easily, it is like almost automatic when I see, if my experience is anything to go by when it comes to this, there is a reason. I mean, sometimes it might be sincere when you really want to be nice to someone, but when you're small and you're growing up and you're dealing with people and all of that, what happens is you think it's like an anti-clash. The way I act to this person is going to influence how they act to me. So if Larry's nice and he pets the dog and he hugs the kids and he tells you that you're been dancing well, the person will act nice in return to him. And he probably picked that up as a kid, because sometimes, like I said earlier when I gave the example, the how I would go around asking for help to do something is different from how somebody else who looked better than me was. It's kind of like when you know you're ugly. Now you might be saying, but Christian, you don't look that bad. This is with eyeliner. This is after I've put on a ton of, like, can you see that shiny spot right there? That is wax paper on top of an acne scar. It affects how you, and she versus Laurie, for instance, who, even if they were in the same situation, they had to look up that chocolate milk, how he would go about doing that would be different. Although some places are not as friendly as others. From when I went to Bastia, Guadeloupe, shopping in Guadeloupe is actually a ton easier than shopping in England. And here is why. When you go up to that shopkeeper, I wrote this in a letter to one of my friends on Reddit. Man, I'm going to miss talking to some people on Reddit. I'm not going to lie. But anyway, when I told a letter to a friend, one of my friends on Reddit, about going to the pizza guy, and you're struggling along in your French, I might have said something like, Bonjour, je sais le Spain. Hello, I want the flatbread. But I have to walk, so it has to be small. So that would be like, mais je à manger si et les de un peu. And when he hears you struggling like that in French, and he realizes, hey, wait a minute, she might speak English, especially, for instance, pronouncing the last R in sayers, he might say, do you speak English? Da 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 da. And then it's like automatically, but he's more like, you speak English? And when you find out that he's too, it's like automatically you're the best of friends, and it's easier, it's way easier. Because also you cannot, in England, when you're walking along the road, you're seeing people looking at you, you're hearing the comments that they make, you understand what they're saying. In France, that's gone. It's way easier. Yeah. So that's the point there. A lot of it comes down to how I react to the world because of how I was made. Now, you might say to yourself, but Christian, like, if you can do all of this in terms of writing as a fakir type on Reddit, why don't you just make all of your accounts into fakir types? And that's because I can't do it. It's a little bit like gender orientation. I'm not always going to be a fakir type. When it comes down to the heart of it, if I'm on a fakir account and I'm pretending to be so smexy and not showing pictures, and when I do show pictures, like say of my hand, I might like lower the color scheme so it looks fairer and all that stuff to try and fake being him. In the end of the day, if I do something cool, like I make a cool dance or my makeup looks good or something, I can't just go and say like, hey, I did this, isn't it wonderful? I would have to like reverse it and say, oh, if I was writing on the my Fakir account, my friend did this, what do you think? And it kind of comes off a little mama bearish. I know that. I know. But what can you do? The last element to this, and Alex, I hope you're watching, because this is an explanation to you, because I picked up that you might not understand some of this, is it's a little bit like a yo-yo. Yes, I can pretend that I am a Fakir type over and over again like a yo-yo. But that string, when you pull down a yo-yo, that string that lets the ball go down and then come back up to you, that string is like who you are. I can extend, pretend to be what I'm not. But in the end of the day, what I actually am grounds me, and it's going to cause that to reverse, to roll back up, hit you in the hand. Because at the end of the day, the physical that you're working with is what you are. Now, could I turn into a Fakir type if I liked and make myself up pretty? Yes, there are plastic surgeries that can do that. I could get two of those like mouth stretchers on the sides that like widen out your cheek and let people see your teeth inside. It looks ridiculous, but it would help. Well, in my opinion, sorry to anybody who knows that. I could bleach out my skin a couple shades down and make it look genuine, but then I have friends who've learned how to help me as I am, especially Dad. That's a big contender on that. I talk to him sometimes. And who I am as I am is what they've learned to relate to. So if I was to let go and change that, it kind of forfeits all that time that we've spent building up, talking to one another. Sometimes Mom would go on the business trips and he'd be there. There's songs that I hear on the radio to this day that kind of associate with Daddy. For instance, the I Promise You Kid You'll Get Much More Than You Can Get, Just Haven't Met You Yet, kind of, that was his. And there's also that Heaven Arms song, that's kind of his too in my head. Well, things he used to sing around the house growing up a lot. And although generally Latin types kind of like, they're harder in a way, because for instance, my friend, let's just call her A, because I don't want to give away too many. Say she was an Aladdin type. He said, come back again. In a kind of way. Well, at least on that level of curiosity and inquisitiveness. Because what he's doing is accepted. It's solid. He's trusted because of the good track record that he has. Me, on the other hand, no. So, like I said, it goes back down to that sweetness. That's why I'm so nice. It's become a habit. I mean, and I don't want to give the impression that with other Jasmine types, like I mentioned, Larry, for instance, like it's not always sincere. Sometimes it might be sincere. I mean, there are instances where you want to be nice to people. Like, for instance, sometimes I email Crispy Crackers. That she's actually the admin that I email the most, because I found out that she has the same name as me.
Friend.
Sometimes having the name Chris can sort of cause you to be a Jasmine type. I don't know why, but I find it very, very common. The name my little sister sort of after me. Whatever. Huh. Well, she exists, yeah, but just not with all the details that you may know. For instance, you think you know my name? You don't really know my name. I'm not as hostile about it as, say, Dina, if you know her, but the name that you know me by is not the real name. Moving on. Anyway, so I was emailing Crispy Crackers, and she's actually friendly. For instance, when the Reddit hats came out, that you can just give these people extra stickers if you like them, if you don't, etc., etc., I emailed her like, hey, did you know this happened? Now, looking back, that's kind of stupid, because she's an admin. Of course she knows it happened, but it was a way to talk, and she answered, and she was friendly. Another time with Crispy Crackers was when her calendar came out, and that was a really pretty picture, and I emailed her and said that, and she said, thank you, and she went on to describe how taking that picture was like on that morning, and it's that kind of opening up, and me being pleasant to her is good, because in that situation, being an unpleasant person does not benefit anybody or anyone. I'm not a troll. You just have to know how to look at it. I hope this is explaining to you what it's kind of like to be Jasmine. And I know, Alex, you might not like the Jasmine accounts. I thought of this. yesterday because I noticed the account where I was flat out me was gone. The account where sometimes I let my sister go on it or talk with her is gone. I'm not sure if Rain444 was gone. I checked that. I think maybe when I checked it out to Facebook it might have been. But anyway, the Jasmine accounts are by and large gone. You might not like this, but there's a reason why I am as I am, even if I'm getting negative karma for it. I thought of this morning when I was walking around the house wondering what on earth am I gonna say. I passed the stove, and what happened this morning with Alex?
Afraid.
It's a little bit like, picture a blind man, and this blind guy is walking around in a hospital. Now, somebody carelessly in this hospital left a domino on the floor, and he accidentally kicked it. And the kick caused the domino to slide on the floor, and let's say it tipped over the sterilizer. Now, if you ever know anything about hospitals, you know that sterilizers are hot, and they have to be because they're killing germs. Now, that sterilizer, when it tipped over, it touched him. Oh, wait, wrong hand. It touched him. And of course, he's going to be upset. He's going to be angry because it burned his hand. And he's going to want it to go off and not to bother him again. But there's a reason that sterilizer was hot. Now, Alex is the blind man in this situation, walking along. The kicking the domino was like making the post. He didn't know that making the post was going to make me want to ask him a couple questions in one comment. But it did. So when he saw that and he's angry towards it because of what happened, he's going to think, like, the sterilizer, it's hot. I don't like it. It's not like me. And so you shadow ban it. But there's a reason for me being hot. It's kind of the best way to go about doing things, given the situations that are around me. Yeah. And that is why I tried to call him. I did. I'm not going to disclose how I got his number. I'm not going to disclose where I got his number because I have sent him so much information through another alt in trying to get him to listen. That if he wanted to, he could just go in a helicopter and drop where I am right now. So because he's being respectful to my privacy, I will be respectful to his. But I tried because it's kind of like I'm trying to explain why I, as the sterilizer, I'm hot. Yeah, it goes like that sometimes. And that's comparativeness for you. The fakir types will be more accepted because they come out as braver, less frightened to do things. Maybe it's experience, height, less correcting because as I said I was going to talk about this. Now, if you go to a church where some of the ladies are constantly talking badly to you at the end of the service and blah blah blah, if you're ever in a situation where you have to do something to them, you're going to remember that and be a little bit upset at it still and not going to want to like help them so fast. That's cheat. Not wanting to put all your energy into something because of something that object has done before to you, that is cheat. And I guess chi is kind of what affects how I look at people in going out to them. So by being extra nice, I'm kind of hopefully eliminating being extra corrected, blah blah blah, all of that extra stuff. Now to the last point, beauty. Like I mentioned, if I was with Karina Kapoor's mother for a day, let's say, and we had to get a note paper from someone, like I said earlier, the way she do it would be different because it's in that back pocket that her face looks fine and she don't got to worry about nothing. So she just walk up to him, probably talk to him for a little bit and ask for the paper. Like I said, I'd be explaining why I needed it. I'd be probably more hesitant to do it walking slowly because as I'm walking, I'm thinking, it's like that. And so that is what being Cherry Roses is like versus what being Coconut 77 is like. If it's strange, it's weird to you, oh well. If you get to know me, sometimes you'd like me. Now, I am going to miss some of the talking to some people on Reddit. Oh, don't fall asleep. Good. I am going to miss talking to some of the people on Reddit. Like Linda73, Pansexual Otherkin might have been his name. Those kind of people who helped me when I didn't quite know what to do sometimes. But this might kind of be the limitation that just makes me give up on Reddit. One day I might wake up and 5 years from now and be like, oh, I haven't been on Reddit for 5 years. Great. It's kind of like I'm done fighting. Because there's nothing you can do. They're always going to think they're right. They have power, you don't. I'm in England. I'm kind of the underdog in all situations, especially posting. It affects you. I'm kind of looking like Snefru this morning, if you know that Egyptian king, but anyway. So yeah. That's all I can really say about it. I also, if you want to reach me, I have a live journal, and I made that when my sister was about maybe 17. That's 2011 early maybe. Cough something. Oh, wow, I forgot the name of my live journal. But on live journal, I'm the best Mosenrath there is on live journal, because the other people who pretend to be Mosenrath, they are saying how Mosenrath looks. Like, for instance, there's this one that was saying like, oh, we should be looking pretty in the sand, da 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 da. But if you're Mosenrath, you're not going to be like seeing yourself all the time in the mirror knowing that you were looking pretty. When I talk as Mosenrath, I'm talking how Mosenrath feels, and that's the difference. Best Mosenrath on live journal there is. I guess I'll be more into YouTube now, etc, etc. But know this, I am who I am. Cutting down the accounts to try and change, it's not going to fully work. Even sometimes I want it to fully work, but at the end of the day, I'm Christian, not Takahiro. I might be ugly, but sorry. Well, that's that.